Hello and welcome back to SpeakNest English Podcast Zone, the home of easy, powerful English for everyone around the world. In this episode, we'll learn how to agree and disagree politely in English. Because knowing how to express your opinion respectfully is a sign of confidence, intelligence, and emotional strength. This episode is great for students, job seekers, homemakers, and new English speakers from Europe, Africa, and everywhere, especially if you want to sound smart without sounding rude.
Ever been in a chat where, you totally agreed, but maybe your enthusiasm didn't quite land?
Oh, definitely.
Or maybe the opposite. You had a different view. And trying to express that felt a bit like walking on eggshells.
Happens all the time.
Right. So that's what we're diving into today. How to agree and disagree, well, politely in English.
It's such a common thing, isn't it? I mean, think about it. In just everyday life, you're always bumping into different opinions.
Yeah.
Like a simple team meeting at work or, just chatting with friends about a movie you saw.
Mm-hmm.
People just see things differently. And, well, that's perfectly normal.
Totally normal. It's kind of the spice of life, really.
It is. It makes things interesting.
Absolutely. But, and this is where I think it gets really crucial, it's often not just what you believe or say. It's how you say it.
Exactly. How it comes across.
Think about a time someone disagreed with you, but you still felt like heard and respected.
Yeah.
What was it about that conversation? What made it work?
Well, often it boils down to some basic things, really.
Like what?
Like, maybe starting by just acknowledging the other person's point first, even if you're about to disagree completely.
Okay. So showing you've taken it in.
Precisely. It signals, hey, I listened, I considered what you said before you jump in with your own take. Makes a huge difference.
That makes total sense. It's sort of like laying a foundation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like saying, okay, I see your point, or I get where you're coming from, even if you follow it with a but or however.
Right. It softens the disagreement.
So I guess our mission today, for you listening, is to equip you with some really practical tools. Ways to say yes that sound genuinely warm, enthusiastic, supportive.
And ways to say no or express a different view that are still, well, smart and respectful.
Exactly. We want you to feel like you've got some concrete techniques you can, use straight away.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be looking at our notes, pulling out not just, specific phrases you can use.
Although those are useful too.
Oh, for sure. But also digging into the sort of mindset behind it all. The approach that helps keep communication respectful, even when, well, opinions clash.
Right. Getting a feel for the nuances.
Exactly. We want to give you a deeper sense of how these little shifts can really impact your conversations.
Okay, so let's dive in then.
Let's do it.
We're going to unpack how to make your agreements feel really solid and affirmative.
And your disagreements sound, well, thoughtful, considered, not just confrontational.
Right. Imagine just feeling more confident navigating those tricky conversations, knowing you can state your view clearly, but also kindly.
It's about having those tools in your back pocket.
For sure.
And maybe, as we talk through this, you could think about your own life. Consider how these different ways of agreeing or disagreeing might actually change things in your daily chats, with colleagues, family, friends.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like actively noticing.
Right. Maybe watch interactions unfold or even try out some of these techniques yourself. See what happens.
Experiment a little.
Yeah. Just consider what impact focusing on the how might have on, well, everything really. Your relationship, how understood you feel.
Interesting thought to keep in mind as we go.
Good to be here.
So today we're doing a deep dive on, well, something we all do constantly, right? Agreeing with people.
Yeah, showing you're on the same page. It's fundamental.
And we found a great lesson focusing specifically on polite ways to agree in English. Some really practical phrases. Our mission really is pretty straightforward. We want to give you some tools, some friendly ways to show agreement that you can, use immediately.
Right. Skip the fluff, get straight to the useful bits, more than just saying yes.
Exactly. It's about adding a bit of warmth, maybe. Texture.
Yeah, warmth, connection. These phrases help build that understanding. Subtle, but important.
Okay, so this lesson highlights 6 key phrases. First up, the absolute classic, I agree with you.
Can't go wrong with that one. Clear, direct.
No ambiguity.
None. If you just need to state it plainly, that's your go-to.
Then sometimes you need a bit more feeling, right? Like you don't just get it, you feel it.
Yeah, that's where that's so true comes in.
That's so true.
Exactly. See, it bridges like the head and the heart a bit.
How so?
Well, it suggests it resonates deeper. Like the other person just said something you've felt yourself but maybe couldn't quite put into words.
Ah, okay. A shared feeling.
Yeah, that kind of connection.
Got it. Okay, next. Short, sharp.
Exactly.
Yes. Satisfying, isn't it?
It really is. It packs a punch, shows you think the other person absolutely nailed it.
Like they hit the bullseye.
Precisely. You ever have that moment? Someone just perfectly captures what you were thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Is the word for that.
Okay. Moving on, there's one that feels quite respectful as well as agreeable.
You mean you're right about that?
That's the one. You're right about that.
Yeah, that's a really good one for acknowledging someone's point, their insight, maybe their accuracy.
That validates them.
It does. And that's super useful in, say, work settings, collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, okay, I see where you're coming from, and I acknowledge that point is valid. It can even help steer things away from disagreement.
Towards common ground.
Exactly. Common ground.
Nice. Okay, now for maximum agreement. No doubt left.
Ah, the big one. I couldn't agree more.
Leaves no wiggle room, does it?
Not a bit. It's emphatic. Total alignment. You are completely 100% on board.
It's almost like saying, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah. Or, couldn't have said it better myself. That level of agreement. Very strong.
Okay, and the last one in the set.
That makes a lot of sense.
This one feels a bit more logical.
It does. It highlights the clarity, the reasoning behind the other person's point.
So you're not just agreeing, you're saying, I followed your logic and it holds up.
Precisely. You understand why it makes sense. You acknowledge the coherence of it.
The rationality.
Right.
Yeah.
That their idea is sound.
Okay, so that's our 6. A neat little toolkit. I agree with you. That's so true. Exactly. You're right about that. I couldn't agree more, and that makes a lot of sense.
A good set.
And the lesson we looked at also stresses that using these helps you sound both friendly and thoughtful. Why is that distinction important, do you think?
Well, think about it. If you just say, I agree, over and over.
Gets a bit flat, like a robot.
Right. Even if you mean it. But phrases like, that's so true, add that warmth we talked about, enthusiasm, makes the other person feel, more connected.
And the thoughtful part.
That comes in with phrases like, you're right about that, or that makes a lot of sense. They signal you didn't just hear them, you listened.
You processed it.
Exactly. You processed it. You considered their perspective, shows respect for their input, thoughtfulness.
Okay, so that leads to the bigger picture, maybe. Why is having this range of options better than just, say, sticking to one or two?
Yeah.
It's not just avoiding sounding like a broken record, is it?
Oh, definitely not. I mean, that helps, but it's more about being more precise, more engaging.
Precision. How so?
Well, each phrase carries a slightly different weight, right?
Yeah.
A different nuance. So choosing the right one lets you show how you agree or how strongly. Think about brainstorming.
Yeah.
Someone throws out an idea. Saying exactly might really energize them, while saying that makes a lot of sense might signal, okay, you see the logic? Let's explore that path.
So you're guiding the conversation subtly with your choice of agreement.
Kind of, yeah. And it keeps things dynamic. It shows you're actively in the conversation, responding thoughtfully, not just passively nodding.
It makes the other person feel really heard.
That's the core of it, feeling heard.
That makes perfect sense. It's like painting with more colors instead of just black and white.
Good analogy. You get a richer picture.
So varying how we agree isn't just about politeness points. It actually improves the whole interaction.
Without a doubt. Clearer understanding, definitely stronger connections. Moving from just nodding along to actually engaging with their ideas.
Right. Okay, so let's recap quickly. In this deep dive, looking at that lesson on polite agreement, we've pulled out 6 really handy English phrases.
I agree with you.
The basic one. Then the feeling one. That's so true.
The punchy one. Exactly.
The respectful nod. You're right about that.
The super strong one. I couldn't agree more.
And the logical one. That makes a lot of sense.
It's got them all.
And we've talked about how using this variety, choosing consciously, can make you sound, well, friendlier, more thoughtful.
And just a better communicator, ultimately.
Yeah. So maybe a final thought for you listening.
Yeah, something to chew on. In your next few chats, maybe just notice how you agree right now.
Just pay attention.
Yeah. And then maybe try, intentionally, swapping in 1 or 2 of these other phrases. See what happens.
See if you notice a difference.
Exactly. See how it feels, how it's received. You might be surprised it's a small language tweak, but it could potentially make a real difference in how you connect with people.
Interesting. A little experiment in connection.
Worth a try.
Ever been in a chat where, you totally agreed, but maybe your enthusiasm didn't quite land?
Oh, definitely.
Or maybe the opposite. You had a different view. And trying to express that felt a bit like walking on eggshells.
Happens all the time.
Right. So that's what we're diving into today. How to agree and disagree, well, politely in English.
It's such a common thing, isn't it? I mean, think about it. In just everyday life, you're always bumping into different opinions.
Yeah.
Like a simple team meeting at work or, just chatting with friends about a movie you saw.
Mm-hmm.
People just see things differently. And, well, that's perfectly normal.
Totally normal. It's kind of the spice of life, really.
It is. It makes things interesting.
Absolutely. But, and this is where I think it gets really crucial, it's often not just what you believe or say. It's how you say it.
Exactly. How it comes across.
Think about a time someone disagreed with you, but you still felt like heard and respected.
Yeah.
What was it about that conversation? What made it work?
Well, often it boils down to some basic things, really.
Like what?
Like, maybe starting by just acknowledging the other person's point first, even if you're about to disagree completely.
Okay. So showing you've taken it in.
Precisely. It signals, hey, I listened, I considered what you said before you jump in with your own take. Makes a huge difference.
That makes total sense. It's sort of like laying a foundation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like saying, okay, I see your point, or I get where you're coming from, even if you follow it with a but or however.
Right. It softens the disagreement.
So I guess our mission today, for you listening, is to equip you with some really practical tools. Ways to say yes that sound genuinely warm, enthusiastic, supportive.
And ways to say no or express a different view that are still, well, smart and respectful.
Exactly. We want you to feel like you've got some concrete techniques you can, use straight away.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be looking at our notes, pulling out not just, specific phrases you can use.
Although those are useful too.
Oh, for sure. But also digging into the sort of mindset behind it all. The approach that helps keep communication respectful, even when, well, opinions clash.
Right. Getting a feel for the nuances.
Exactly. We want to give you a deeper sense of how these little shifts can really impact your conversations.
Okay, so let's dive in then.
Let's do it.
We're going to unpack how to make your agreements feel really solid and affirmative.
And your disagreements sound, well, thoughtful, considered, not just confrontational.
Right. Imagine just feeling more confident navigating those tricky conversations, knowing you can state your view clearly, but also kindly.
It's about having those tools in your back pocket.
For sure.
And maybe, as we talk through this, you could think about your own life. Consider how these different ways of agreeing or disagreeing might actually change things in your daily chats, with colleagues, family, friends.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like actively noticing.
Right. Maybe watch interactions unfold or even try out some of these techniques yourself. See what happens.
Experiment a little.
Yeah. Just consider what impact focusing on the how might have on, well, everything, really. Your relationship, how understood you feel.
Interesting thought to keep in mind as we go.
Today, we're looking at something really useful, I think. Navigating disagreements in English, but, keeping things respectful.
Yeah, exactly.
We've gathered some interesting material on sort of the strategies behind polite agreement and disagreement. And our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack these ideas so you can hopefully apply them pretty much right away.
Absolutely. I mean, disagreements, they're just a natural part of talking to people, aren't they?
Totally unavoidable sometimes.
Right. So the key is figuring out how to get your point across clearly, but still, value where the other person is coming from.
And that's what we want to give you, right? Some concrete tools.
Exactly. Tools to handle these moments constructively.
Okay, let's dive right in then. So the first thing our sources mention is about keeping calm, maintaining that cool demeanor when opinions differ. And interestingly, one suggestion that pops up is, well, it sounds simple. Just smile.
Yeah, which, in the heat of the moment might feel a bit strange, right? Counterintuitive.
Definitely. Like, I disagree, but jeez.
Yeah. But what's fascinating maybe is the psychological side of it. The impact a smile can have.
Okay.
Well, even if internally you're thinking, nope, don't agree, a smile can signal non-verbally that you're still open, that you want the conversation to stay, friendly.
Okay, so it's like a de-escalation tactic.
Kind of, yeah. A nonverbal way to maybe lower the tension before it even starts.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying, look, I hear you and I'm still here, engaged in a positive way.
Right. It's like a visual reassurance, isn't it? Okay, so building on that idea of calm, the material also talks about word choice, being careful.
The language we use.
Yeah, specifically mentioning words like maybe, perhaps, and the phrase I feel. These seem like tiny adjustments.
They do seem small, yeah.
But what's the power behind using those specific words in a disagreement?
Well, if you think about how we process things, these words add, like a layer of softness. Mitigation is maybe the technical term.
Softness, okay. How so?
Maybe, and perhaps, they offer possibilities, right? Not like a direct contradiction. That feels less threatening to the other person.
Less like you're shutting them down immediately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel is really interesting. It frames your point as, well, they're feeling, your personal experience.
So subjective, not objective fact.
Precisely. It's not presented as some universal truth that's directly fighting their truth.
Yeah.
It shifts the whole thing from a battle of who's right or wrong.
To just sharing different perspectives.
Yeah, exactly that. A sharing of perspectives.
That's actually a really useful way to think about it. Moving away from being confrontational. Okay, another big point they emphasize is not interrupting.
Oh, the interruption thing, yes.
Letting the other person finish speaking. Now, this feels like basic politeness, right? Good manners in any chat.
It does, yeah. Common courtesy.
But why is it especially critical when you disagree with someone?
Well, I think it boils down to respect, doesn't it? Respect for their thinking process.
Yeah.
When you interrupt, especially in a disagreement, it can easily come across as you saying, what I have to say is more important. Or, I don't really value your point.
Right, like you're dismissing them before they've even finished.
Exactly. And when emotions might already be a bit, heightened, giving someone that space to fully explain their thought, it shows you're actually listening.
Even if you know you're going to disagree in the end.
Especially then. It shows you're willing to understand their reasoning first. It just fosters a much more respectful and, frankly, more productive discussion.
And it probably gives you a second to properly hear them, too, instead of just waiting to jump in with your own point.
Absolutely. Active listening.
Okay, so linked to that listening part, the advice also includes thanking the other person, thanking them for sharing their perspective, which sounds nice, but even if you think their perspective is completely off base.
Yes, precisely. Even then, thanking someone for sharing, it doesn't mean you agree with the content of what they shared.
Okay, so what does it mean then?
It means you're acknowledging their effort, their willingness to engage and, put their view out there.
Validating their participation, not necessarily their opinion.
You got it. It reinforces that you value them in the conversation, even if your ideas are like poles apart.
Yeah.
It helps keep the focus on the idea.
It stops it getting personal.
Right. Stops it becoming a clash of personalities.
Yeah.
It's a small gesture, thanking them, but it can really impact the whole tone.
Yeah, I can see that. It reinforces that separation. Which brings us, I guess, to the final, really fundamental point the source material makes.
The core message, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. It's simply, disagreement does not equal disrespect.
That's huge. And it feels like it underpins all the other advice, doesn't it?
It really does.
What's interesting there, I think, is how easily we can get those two mixed up. Our emotional reaction to someone disagreeing
Can feel like a personal attack.
Yeah, exactly. We might interpret a different opinion as a challenge or, as them being disrespectful towards us.
When really, they might just see the topic differently.
Right. So if we can consciously make that separation, okay, we disagree on this thing, but I still respect you as a person, and then use these polite communication strategies we've talked about.
The smiling, the careful words, not interrupting, thanking.
Yes, all of that.
Yeah.
It creates a much safer space, a space where you can actually explore different ideas without, blowing up the relationship.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap those key takeaways then. Some really practical steps for handling disagreements politely in English. First, remember the smile.
That potential power of a simple smile, even when you disagree.
Then, being mindful of word choice. Using softer language like, maybe, perhaps, I feel.
Yeah, those mitigating words.
Then actively practicing not interrupting, just letting them finish. It's a skill, right?
It definitely takes practice sometimes.
Making a point to thank the other person for sharing their view, even if you really don't agree with it.
Acknowledging their contribution.
And maybe the biggest one, constantly reminding yourself internally that disagreeing about something isn't the same as disrespecting someone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Disagreement. Disrespect. That's the formula.
These all sound, fairly straightforward on the surface.
They do. But it's actually doing them, consciously applying these things that makes the real difference.
Right. It's the deliberate effort.
Yeah. That's what can genuinely shift the dynamic of a disagreement. Turn something potentially negative into something much more constructive and, well, respectful.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to take away. Think about a conversation coming up where you perhaps anticipate a bit of a disagreement.
Mm-hmm. We all have those sometimes.
How might it change things if you went in deciding to consciously focus on just one of these techniques? Maybe it's the smile. Maybe it's making sure you use I feel statements.
Just picking one specific thing to try.
Yeah. How could that one small intentional shift in your approach maybe alter the whole outcome of that conversation? It's kind of interesting to think about, isn't it? A little experiment in communication. Here to really get into some source material you shared, turning that info into insight nice and quick.
Yeah, today we're looking at something that, well, it looks simple, really simple, but there's surprising depth when you see how it works. It's a short dialogue example you sent over. Focus on, how to agree and disagree politely in English.
Exactly. And our deep dive mission today, is to take this tiny exchange, like you said, just a few lines, and really excavate what's going on underneath. What are the actual mechanics, little moves that let people share different views without it turning into an argument?
Mm-hmm. The source itself uses this mini conversation about, I think it was online versus classroom learning. But like you said, that topic, it's almost beside the point. It's just the setting. The real gold is in the how, the structure, the specific words they use.
Right. So let's forget, though, what online learning, classrooms, whatever, for a minute, and really zoom in on the how. How are they actually talking to each other? Get ready, because we're going to pull apart those subtle choices, the things that make communication smooth, even when people don't quite see eye to eye. Let's dive in.
Okay. So the source material gives us this short exchange. Really short.
Person A kicks it off, and I'm quoting the source here. I think online learning is better than classroom learning.
Okay, pretty clear. Direct opinion stated right there. Now, the interesting part is how person B responds. Pay attention to this bit from the source.
Right. Person B replies, "That's interesting. I agree it's convenient, but I feel classrooms offer better interaction."
And straight away, the source points out the result. It says something like, see how both shared their ideas without a fight? That's the goal.
Sharing ideas without a fight. Okay, that's the goal. But, how did person B actually do that? They clearly didn't agree. Online learning is just flat out better. It's not just saying, that's interesting, and then your own thing, is it? There must be more to it. Feels too simple.
Well, it's not magic, no, but it is very deliberate. If you look closely at person B's response, the source implies there's a structure there, a very subtle but intentional sequence. It's designed to sort of disarm conflict before it even gets going. Specific moves in order.
Okay, moves. Let's break those down. The very first thing person B says is, that's interesting. That sounds almost neutral, maybe a bit non-committal. Why start there?
But from a communication angle, that opening is, well, it's crucial. It's about de-escalation. It signals to person A, okay, I heard you. I'm taking in what you said. Mm-hmm. It's an acknowledgement, a pause. It tells the other person basically, you've been heard, which makes them way less likely to get defensive than if you just jumped in with like, nope, you're wrong.
Oh, okay. So it's about creating a bit of space, showing respect for their contribution first. You're validating them talking, even before you say if you agree or not. It buys you a second and shows you're engaging with the idea, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. It shifts the whole dynamic, away from a potential fight where you're attacking points towards a conversation where ideas are just considered. Now, the second part of B's response, I agree it's convenient.
Right, and this is key, isn't it? Person A said online is better, broad claim. Person B doesn't necessarily agree with better overall, but they find one specific bit convenience that they can genuinely agree on.
Yes, and that is such a powerful tactic. Finding even a small patch of common ground or acknowledging something valid in their point, it builds connection. Rapport, it shows you're not, totally opposed. You see some merit. It's like building a little bridge before you introduce your different idea. Connection, not just opposition.
Okay, so acknowledge, connect on a specific point, then you bring in your different take. Person B says, but I feel classrooms offer better interaction.
And notice the phrasing there, I feel. That's really important. They didn't say, well, actually classrooms are better because the interaction is way superior, right? That would sound like a direct challenge, a refutation. by saying I feel, or you could use I think, or in my experience, person B frames it as their reality, their perspective.
Right. It's owning your view, isn't it? Not stating it like it's some universal truth that just cancels out what the other person said. This is how I see it, or this is my experience. Much harder to argue with than you're wrong.
Precisely. It positions your idea as just another contribution, another angle, not something that invalidates what was just said. It lets both ideas kind of exist together. Person A's view is fine for them, and person B's feeling is fine for them.
So when the source says the goal is sharing ideas without a fight, this little exchange is basically showing the how-to. It's that combo. Acknowledge, find common ground, then state your difference gently using I statements.
It's like a mini blueprint for productive dialogue. Keeping things calm. It's not about winning the point. It's about exchanging ideas. It lets both people put their thoughts out there without immediately triggering that defensiveness that just shuts everything down.
That makes a lot of sense, yeah. It takes that potentially tricky moment disagreement and navigates it by kind of prioritizing validation and connection first.
Yeah.
Feels less like a direct hit and more like just adding another perspective to the pot.
And the structure, it's not just about online learning, obviously. You can apply this framework from the source in so many places. You know, disagreements about a project at work, differing political views, even just like where to get dinner. It's a tool for keeping the conversation open and the relationship intact.
Okay, so let's pull back from that specific dialogue example. Thinking about agreeing and disagreeing politely, what are the main takeaways here based on this source?
Well, it really highlights the power of structure and language choice. First, that deliberate acknowledgement, that's interesting part. Validating their input right off the bat.
Yeah, setting the stage. Then finding that, maybe often missed, chance to agree with some part of it, the I agree it's convenient bit. That's the bridge building.
Exactly. And then the final piece. Introducing your perspective gently, framing it as your feeling or your thought, but I feel, avoids that direct confrontation.
And the source really underlines that using this sequence, this structure, specific method, its aim is that crucial goal, sharing ideas openly, freely, without things escalating into a fight. It's maybe less about instantly changing someone's mind and more about allowing different ideas to be shared respectfully.
Right. And just think about that for a second. What if approaching disagreements like this, using this kind of intentional structure, what if it really did help you achieve that goal more often?
Yeah.
Maybe not even the whole sequence every time, but maybe just consciously trying one or two steps.
Yeah, like what would your conversations look like if they allowed for more real exchange and, less conflict, especially on those trickier subjects?
Yeah. Consider how just adding that initial acknowledgement, that's interesting, or okay, I hear you, or even just making the effort to find that tiny point of agreement first. How might that one small change shift the whole feel of your next discussion where views differ? What could that open up for genuine connection, maybe, even when you fundamentally disagree? Today, we're jumping into your source material, and it's focused on something really valuable, I think, how to agree and maybe disagree well, gracefully, using some specific English words you pointed out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
in a world just flooded with information, different views, being able to, put your thoughts out there clearly, but also really respect where someone else is coming from, that's huge. It's not just about being polite. It's about making conversations actually work. And your source gives some really practical tools for that.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out those key vocabulary nuggets from your notes. We want to show you how using these specific words can, well, make you sound a bit more advanced maybe, and help you handle those sometimes tricky conversations with a bit more finesse. And, just get your point across effectively, even when you're not on the same page.
Exactly. It's really about equipping you with the language to build conversational bridges, maybe, instead of walls.
Okay, let's dive right in then. Your source lists a few specific terms. Let's start there. The first one mentioned is perspective. And the source suggests saying something like, I see your perspective.
Yeah, and I see your perspective. It seems simple, but it's actually quite powerful. What it does is it shifts the dynamic immediately. You're not just saying, I heard you. You're saying, I'm trying to understand your viewpoint.
Ah, okay.
It validates them, right up front before you even hint at your own ideas. And that can really soften the ground for whatever comes next. Shows you're listening, not just waiting to talk.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about acknowledgement first. So how is that different from, say, point of view? Your source mentions that too. The example was, from my point of view, it's different.
Ah, yeah, good question. They are similar, but there's a subtle difference in usage. often. Point of view tends to be used a bit more explicitly to contrast your position.
To contrast. Okay.
Yeah. I see your perspective as like stepping onto their ground for a moment.
Yeah.
From my point of view, however,
Yeah.
is more like clearly stating, okay, now here's my ground, and it's distinct.
Got it.
That phrase, from my point of view, it's a polite flag, really. It signals you're about to present your take, which might diverge. It's a way to own your opinion clearly, but importantly, without necessarily dismissing theirs.
Okay, so you've acknowledged their perspective, maybe stated your own point of view, but what if you need to introduce an idea that actually conflicts? Or, gently challenge something? Your source brings up the word counterpoint. How does that fit in?
Right, counterpoint. This is where it gets quite strategic, actually. When you introduce your differing idea as a counterpoint, you're framing it differently. It's not necessarily a direct "you're wrong" or an attack. It's more like, let me add a counterpoint here. It suggests you're adding another piece to the puzzle.
Like a contribution.
Exactly. A contribution to the discussion, another angle to consider. It helps keep things constructive. It sort of elevates the exchange from a potential argument to more of a collaborative exploration. Exploring different facets.
I like that idea, framing it as adding, not just opposing, but, using these words effectively. It's not just about the words, is it? Your source talks about being open-minded.
Oh, absolutely critical, yes. Being open-minded, it's the bedrock, really. If you're not genuinely willing to at least consider a different perspective or listen to that counterpoint, well, then just saying, I see your perspective can ring pretty hollow, can't it?
Yeah, it could even sound a bit patronizing, maybe.
Exactly. So that internal attitude, trying to stay genuinely open-minded, that's what gives these phrases their authenticity. It's about coming to the conversation with curiosity, maybe, rather than just certainty.
Okay. And then there's one more key word your source highlights. A small one, but important. Respectfully. The example given is, respectfully, I think we should try another way.
Yes. That adverb, respectfully, it does a surprising amount of heavy lifting in a sentence like that.
Yeah.
Adding it right at the start signals your intention. Says, okay, I'm about to disagree or suggest something different, but I want to do it politely.
It's like a little buffer.
It is. Think about just saying, I think we should try another way. Depending on the tone, it can sound quite blunt, maybe even dismissive.
Sure.
But adding respectfully cushions the statement. It acknowledges the current idea or effort and makes it clear your alternative comes from a place of consideration, not, contempt.
Especially useful when you need to be direct but maintain goodwill.
Precisely. It smooths the edges.
So let's pull this all together then. We've got perspective, point of view, counterpoint, the attitude of open-mindedness, and using respectfully. What's the bigger picture here? What does using this kind of language really do for you in conversations?
Well, fundamentally, it's about building a more sophisticated and, frankly, more effective communication toolkit. Your source mentions it helps you sound smart and have more grace, which is true. But I think it goes deeper. When you consciously choose these words, you're not just swapping vocabulary, you're actually adopting a different stance in the conversation.
A different stance. How so?
You're signaling, non-verbally almost, that you value understanding, that you consider different angles, that you prioritize respectful interaction.
So it moves beyond just having opinions to being able to share them and, crucially, discuss them well, especially when things get complex or there's disagreement.
Yes, exactly that. It's kind of shortcut, maybe. Not just to showing you're informed, but showing you're skilled in interacting around knowledge, yours and others.
That really lands. It's about the interaction itself.
It absolutely is. And it equips you for more meaningful dialogue, which, let's face it, is vital everywhere. Work meetings, learning something new, even just trying to understand, the news or talking with friends about different views.
Okay, that was a really useful dive into using specific language as tools for better conversations.
Definitely. And the ability to handle differing opinions with both, clarity and courtesy. It's just such a powerful asset in almost any context you can think of.
So by consciously practicing these terms from your source, thinking about perspective, stating your point of view clearly, offering a counterpoint constructively, trying to stay open-minded, and remembering to be respectful, you're really sharpening a crucial skill set.
You are. Think of them as building blocks. Blocks for more productive conversations and probably less stressful ones too.
Right. So here's a final thought to maybe chew on, something to take away from this dive. Think about this. How does the simple choice of words, like saying, let me offer a counterpoint, instead of maybe, well, that's just wrong, how does that choice actually change things? Not just how you're perceived, but the entire potential path and maybe the outcome of that conversation. What doors open up when you choose language that aims to build connection, even amidst disagreement, instead of language that might shut things down? Something to think about next time you navigate a difference of opinion.
Today, we're getting into something really fundamental. It's about how we agree, and maybe more importantly, how we disagree politely in English.
That everyday dance we all do.
Exactly. And we're using a specific piece as our jumping off point. It's called Motivation Moment, Be the Better Voice. It comes from something titled Episode 37, How to Agree and Disagree Politely in English, Speak Smart, Stay Kind.
Yeah, and what's interesting straight off the bat is, while we're talking English language, it really hits at something deeper.
Deeper how?
Well, it's about how we connect, fundamentally. As people, it's not just vocabulary or grammar. It's about building bridges, even when we see things differently.
Right, building bridges. I like that. So our mission here really is to pull out the key insights from this source. How can we talk respectfully when views clash? And I guess, why does that even matter so much?
Yeah, why is it so important?
Okay, so the source kicks off with this line. Smart communication builds smart relationships. Sounds simple enough, maybe even a bit obvious.
Well, yes and no. I mean, think about the flip side. When communication breaks down, relationships suffer, right? But the smart part...
What makes it smart, you think?
I think it's about making the other person feel genuinely heard, respected. Even if you're thinking, nope, I don't agree with that at all. If you handle that disagreement poorly, make them feel dismissed.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever felt shut down in a chat?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You just want to disengage.
Exactly. So that smart communication, the kind that respects the other person, it builds trust, openness, and that's the foundation for, any decent relationship, isn't it? Work, friends, family.
Makes sense. It's laying groundwork.
Precisely.
Okay, then there's this other quote. The world needs people who can speak calmly, listen deeply, and stay kind even in disagreement. It feels quite aspirational. Why frame it as something the world needs?
Well, look around, Think about public discourse, online, sometimes even in person. Things can get heated, polarized very quickly. And often, the disagreement spirals not because the core issue is impossible, but because how people talk about it breaks down. Shouting matches, insults.
Yeah, communication failure.
Right. So if individuals can manage to stay calm, actually try to understand where the other person is coming from, that's the listen deeply part, and crucially maintain kindness.
Even when it's really hard.
Especially when it's hard, then you create a possibility for, actual dialogue, something constructive, maybe finding common ground or at least understanding the difference without declaring war.
Shifting from winning to understanding.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Now, this is where I found it really connects things up. The source actually links English language skills to growing as a global citizen. That feels like a big leap from just, agreeing politely.
It does seem like a leap at first, but think about it. English is, like it or not, often the common language in international settings, right? Business, science, diplomacy.
True. A lingua franca, basically.
So being able to navigate disagreement respectfully in English becomes a tool for something much bigger than just a one-on-one chat. It's about collaborating, understanding across cultures, across different ways of thinking.
So it's like the skill set for polite disagreement is also the skill set for effective cross-cultural communication.
In many ways, yes. Because effective communication globally demands navigating differences respectfully. Different norms, different assumptions. Being able to disagree without causing offense in a language many share, that's a powerful skill for anyone operating on that bigger stage. It lets you have meaningful conversations, even when the viewpoints are worlds apart.
Okay, so for you listening right now, what's a concrete thing to take away? It sounds like it's not just about being nice. These skills actually shape your effectiveness.
Absolutely. It's practical. Think about the next time you're heading into a conversation where you might not see eye to eye with someone. Instead of just planning your counter argument while they're talking, really try to hear them. What's the logic behind their point? What are their underlying concerns or values?
So active listening, basically.
Deep listening, as the source puts it.
Yeah.
Maybe even try saying back what you think they said. Like, okay, so if I understand correctly, you're saying X because of Y, just to check.
Before you jump in with your own point.
Exactly. That simple step, making sure you understand, can sometimes completely change the tone. It shows respect, it clarifies things, and it often just calms the situation down. leads to a much better exchange.
Right. So wrapping this up then, the main idea isn't really just about avoiding fights. It seems to be about consciously using communication, thoughtful, respectful communication, as a way to actually build stronger ties.
Yeah, and build understanding, especially when understanding seems difficult.
It makes those connections more resilient, maybe.
I think so. And that message from the source about being the better voice, it's a reminder that we actually have agency in this. We can choose how we engage.
Choose calmness. Choose to listen properly. Choose kindness.
Mm-hmm. And doing that consistently, it doesn't just make that one conversation better. It contributes little by little to a more functional way of dealing with differences in general.
Okay, so final thought for you, the listener. How consciously are you actually using these ideas day to day? Think back to a recent disagreement, maybe a small one, maybe bigger.
Yeah, reflect on that.
Could you have maybe steered it differently by focusing more on deep listening? Or maintaining that calm, kind approach, even if you felt strongly. And I mean, maybe zoom out a bit. How could really honing these skills, treating them as actual skills to develop, impact more than just your chats?
How could it help you grow, maybe in that broader sense the source mentioned, as someone who can navigate a complex world?
Yeah, as a global citizen, it's definitely something to mull over, isn't it? That idea of being the better voice, one conversation at a time.
That wraps up episode 37, How to Agree and Disagree Politely in English. You've just added a new superpower to your English skills. In the next episode, we'll explore how to describe your daily routine in English, perfect for conversations, time management, and even job interviews. So, stay kind, stay clear, and keep speaking your truth. Only on SpeakNest English Podcast Zone.